There are a lot of rules in the NCAA today because of me. I just want you to know that. A lot of the training rules, the ones that act like 4-hour limits and stuff like that. No working out after the matches. I mean, it's like, I don't know why they do things like that, but the thing was, they saw a guy that was kind of dominating, so they wanted to legislate equality. That's kind of what they would like to do. But the whole thing is, just because if you really get your team ready, that you don't have to make them wrestle or work out after their match. You just teach them how to do that. So almost every guy continued, even though there was a rule there, they would go do it on their own, and that was legal. But if the coach was there with them or making them do it, you know, they couldn't do that. So it's just probably taught me a good coaching principle. Good coaching principle is that the coach shouldn't have to make kids do things, that you teach them how to do things on their own. I know when you go to college, it's always a great thing for, like, I can remember going to Iowa State, and it was an 8:10 class in the morning, and the teacher wasn't there at 8:10, he wasn't there at 8:11, he wasn't there at 8:19, he wasn't there at 8:20. So the whole class got up and left. That's just not how it worked in wrestling practice. 3:30 in the afternoon, practice started. If the coach isn't there to start the practice at 3:30, at 3:30 and 1 second, this team here gets up, goes to work, and they know what they're doing because they've been educated, and they'll get 95% of the workout without the coach there. That's very valuable. And a lot of kids would take advantage of the coach not being there and leaving, and that's the difference in the really good programs and the kids that are driven. So, to be honest with you, if you're going to be a good academic student, the teacher doesn't show up, you just open the book, do your work. And hopefully, you know, that's something that that you kind of take in mind, because it's not only about your 4 or 5 years, or you stay after and wrestle and try to win the Worlds and Olympic Games. It's about your whole life, to be honest with you. I used to measure my people mostly on W's and L's, but it's more about now what they're doing currently with their lives, in their profession and in their family. That's kind of how I measure them. So that means the whole team, not just the W's and L's, the guys that won the NCAAs or All-Americans and all that. It's the guys that carry that work ethic, that discipline with them their entire life. So anyway, you know, Iowa, it says here, like, in Iowa we wrestle. You know what? Some people kind of like look at that and they kind of laugh a little bit, you know, just because of the fact that, you know, it's football, or it's basketball, or it's something else. I'll tell you what, it's good to be known for something that's positive. It's good to be known for something. And you know what? We're known throughout the world. The state of Iowa is known throughout the world, not just because of just the sport of wrestling, just because it's been good there, but we've been able to penetrate and reach the far corners of the world. There's all these little countries in Europe and in Asia that if you go over there, there's going to be people there that know Iowa because of wrestling, and that's positive, and that's positive. I think we have 29 world and Olympic medals from the state of Iowa, 2.8 million people over their history. 29 world and Olympic medals. I think we have 55 national collegiate wrestling team championships from the state of Iowa over the years. 55. You know, that reaches a long way. Those 29 world and Olympic medals reach a long way, and that's good. In fact, when all of a sudden we had some issues about a year and 3/4 ago about Olympic wrestling, our governor was the first one in the state immediately to step up and lead across the country. A lot of governors, I think about 33 to 35 governors stepped right up once our governor stepped up and start pushing the ink a little bit for that type of keeping wrestling in the Olympics. And the only reason why Olympic wrestling was because we were the first. We were the first. And you know how we got in there. It was the old days, the ancient days. And they filled an arena, and all of a sudden there was a full house, and these two guys would walk out in the middle of the arena, and they got after it. One guy picked up, threw the other guy down. All of a sudden he got up, same guy picked the same guy up, threw him right down. All of a sudden the guy that got thrown down twice knew he was in trouble. He took off running. So the other guy chased him for 26.2 miles, and he died. And that's the first two Olympic sports, wrestling and the marathon. You know, it's not far from that, the honest truth, to be honest with you. Even though that's a little shady there, but that's pretty important. But anyway, the state of Iowa, we also, hey, it's good that we feed the world too. We're an agricultural state, and we have a guy that was in our state, from Cresco, Iowa, which is a small little town of 2,500 people. They have 5 or 6 NCAA Division I champions, and they had a guy that just got a statue unveiled in Washington, D.C. just within the last year. Norman Borlaug, a wrestler. But that's not what he's known for. He's known for developing a system to feed the underprivileged of the world in countries like India, Pakistan. He developed something out of wheat, food out of wheat. It's called the greening process. And he just died about 3 years ago, about 97 years old. But this guy gave all the credit to our sport for him being able to work extra hard and be able to develop something that was so important to the world. So important that the United States just put up a statue in Washington, D.C. So it's really good to be known for something. It's really good that we got wrestling back in the Olympics on the first vote. But it's not something that's just automatic. We sometimes take things that are just like, we think because we're entitled. It's like because we're the first sport in the Olympic Games, we just think that our leadership can just kind of set back. And that's the reason why we got kicked out, because our leadership was not doing their homework. Not doing their homework. And we had to change some leadership. And we really didn't know how to change that leadership before we got kicked out, because it was such a high ranking. I know the one time that they changed leadership back in 1970, it was so corrupt. Not just wrestling, but wrestling was corrupt too at that time, that the only way they could figure out really how to change leadership, and this is a true story, they actually killed the guy. Somebody shot and killed the guy. And we found out we didn't have to do that with this leadership. We actually had a protocol, but nobody really, we probably would have shot him too, but just joking. Just joking. Maybe not though. I'll tell you why, maybe not. Some of these countries take wrestling pretty serious. About 3 months ago, our representative from the United States, I was with him, and he said, "Gable." I said, "Yeah, Stan." He goes, we just had our meeting with, Fila, now it's changed its name. And he says, Mommy Shabili, who works out of Putin's office, actually he called me, he couldn't make this meeting, but it came up Putin's office, Vladimir Putin from Russia. So, and all of a sudden this Mommy Shabili got on the phone, and he says, "Would you tell Gable that not to mention what he said?" And he goes, "What was that?" He goes, "He called me mafia." And it's really what he is. He can't even get into our country. But he was reading Win magazine. I don't know if you ever read Win magazine. It's out of Iowa, but it's a national-based magazine. It's about 100 pages. Comes out about twice, 3 times a month during the wrestling season. But that was in Putin's office, Win magazine. He was reading it where I called him Mafia. And so you'd be surprised where things go in this world. In Russia, the head of Russia comes right out of their president's office. The head of Iran comes right out of their office. And then several others as well. But we gotta look at, you know, where we are. We're in 180 countries. We just need to do the right things. We need to have good leaders, and it's very important. And obviously, Virginia Tech's been blessed with some pretty good leaders in wrestling over the last, actually the state of Virginia, for many years. We have a lot of Iowa influence. I'm not saying that's just all it has to be, but I believe it. I think in Grundy, Virginia, we've had like, address you, Grundy? And so is Pfizer. He's still there, right? And then we've had several guys here. We've had Keith Moreland, Wes Hand, Tom Brands. I mean, we've had a lot of influence just locally here with a lot of wrestling, and that's why, you know, it's pretty good. But Dresser, you know, I'm just going to give you a story about Dresser because, you know, he didn't make the team automatically when he came. We had a really tough team. He had to set out 3 years. I could be wrong. But, set out 3? As far as being the guy that represented us. He got to wrestle a lot in outside competition. But he waited his turn and literally not waiting, getting tough. And when he got his chance to step in, he was 4th, I believe, the first year. And that was his 4th year. And his 5th year, he won the NCAAs. And it came right down to an unbelievable technical skill to win on a head to outside shot, cut the corner, cut off at the knee, switch off at the knee, took him down. It was beautiful. And he won in the last 20, 30 seconds. It was pretty amazing. But he put his time in. And you know what's funny? We're a medical school there as well. And he kept complaining about his elbow, and you know how we are as coaches sometimes. And he'd go get it looked at, and they would just kind of say, it's nothing. But he kept complaining. So finally we realized that we better take a little closer look. And you know what? He might have been in the lineup the year before, but he had a lot of issues with his elbow that we weren't actually reacting to. And it wasn't just the wrestling, it was the medical department. And all of a sudden they realized that he needed some surgery. He did the surgery, and when he came back, he was better than ever. And so we probably messed up a little bit with him there, even though we had some really good people. So it's always, you know, lessons that you learn.
Coach, can I bounce some questions off you?
Sure.
We'll do that?
Yeah.
Let's bounce some questions off you. Coach Gable. I'll stand up. How many people here want to be college wrestlers? There's more than that out there. There's more than that out there. Yeah, there's plenty of people out there that want to be college wrestlers, or certainly want to wrestle at the highest level. So, from your expertise and from what you've seen, and right now at this moment in wrestling, what is advice? You started to talk about the work ethic. What kind of things and advice would you tell young wrestlers to help them get to that point?
Well, first of all, my mission is to help you in another way, just to let you know that. My mission is to get more schools to add wrestling to make sure that you have more opportunities. And so we're very down. We go from 280,000 to 10,000, you know, and so Florida's adding a wrestling program today, you know, something like that. But as far as what you really need, you know, you need more vision in front of you that you can go all kinds of different places to be able to wrestle, instead of just 75 D1 schools. We need 150 D1 schools, which we had 156 at one time. So, you know, that's kind of how I operate. Now, as far as like getting tough and all that kind of stuff, you know, that's kind of up to you personally, and up to your coaches and your teammates. And I'll tell you, a lot has to do with your surroundings and atmosphere, just how good you're going to be. But when you have somebody that is an example and that you see what can happen,